Tell us who you are.
My name is Jazmin Gooding. I am a proud product of Jersey City, New Jersey. I grew up to a single parent household. I was raised by my amazing mother and grandmother. I was fortunate enough to be raised in Jersey City. I did a lot of work in dance school and in church, and then I decided I wanted to go off to college. So I went to the University of Richmond, took an educational psych class, and in that class I realized that there was a disparity in education. And so I thought, what better way to give back than to become a teacher? So I joined the 2013 Teach for America New Jersey Corps that brought me back to Newark, New Jersey,
Wow.
where I started as a first grade teacher. I worked there for 3 years before transitioning to Plainfield. Continued to teach kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth grade, and then I became an assistant principal. After that, I really enjoyed the assistant principal aspect, but thought, what would be a great opportunity for me to be a leader in education. I remember not seeing a lot of people who looked like me when I was in school, and so that started my educational leadership journey to be where I am today.
Wow. Wow. I did not know all of that. That's a lot. You came up through the ranks.
I did.
You came
I
up
did.
through the ranks.
I did.
And you knew what your purpose was, and you did it. All right. Okay, so what or who inspired you to becoming an educator?
In kindergarten, I had a really great teacher. Her name was Miss Armu. She was a strong, unapologetic black woman. And I remember being only 5 and thinking, I want to be just like her when I grew up. And so she was always the driving force behind me going back into education. But when I think about who really inspired me to become a teacher or to work in education, I definitely attribute a lot of that to her.
Wow. Is she still around? Does she know your progress that you have made?
She is. I ran into her at a nail salon
Wow.
maybe like 5 years ago, and I said, Miss Armu, do you remember me? You taught me in kindergarten. And she was like, of course I remember you. And I told her about, at that time I was still teaching, but how I became a teacher really because of her, and she was really honored. And then when I became an assistant principal, we're still friends on Facebook. I reached out to her and let her know, and so she follows my progress through social media, so that's cool.
That's great. Does she still teach?
She doesn't. She's retired. She's
Okay.
retired now. But still working, wherever she can, but retired now.
All right. How has your mindset changed from a teacher of a few children and now a principal of a school, not only being in charge of children but fellow educators?
Really random. Can you hear that?
That's fine.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
Positive? Okay. All right, sorry.
We're
Ask me that again. You're going to cut this, right? So
I'm gonna edit it.
Great.
I'm gonna ask it again. How has your mindset changed from a teacher of a few children to now a principal of a school, not only being in charge of children but fellow educators?
Impact. Impact is always the word that I think I use on a daily basis. But the goal remains the same, right? Change. And so whether it's a classroom of 26 or a staff of 55, the goal is always just to continue to make change and to make progress. And so my mindset has really shifted just in terms of how much of an impact I can make. I'm not just impacting students in a classroom, I'm also impacting adults, I'm impacting their families, I'm impacting the community of Plainfield. And so I always try to think through how does my decision going to affect not just one group of people, but different subsets, which makes the decisions harder to make, of course. But I really do feel like my mindset has shifted just in terms of who is my decision or who are the things that I'm doing, who's that going to affect.
Right. You have a great responsibility. I wouldn't want your job.
Most people don't. We still looking for educators and principals. So.
Wow. So do you have a vice principal at the school, or does it?
I have a dean of scholar and support services, Mr. Lopez, who really is my right hand, and then my CAO, Miss West, chief academic officer and director. She's my boss, but she also is a really awesome thought partner. In addition to having a math coach and a literacy coach that I work with, so I have a nice leadership team.
And they're all in this building with you, or?
They're all in this building.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're all in this
That's
building.
really convenient.
Yeah, exactly. Just go walk down the hall.
Yeah, you can just walk down the hall. Like, listen, I need help with this.
Yeah, right. And that's a nice thing about being in a smaller school. You really are able to have access points to find people. It's not like you gotta, call or email and not be able to find that person. So I really appreciate that.
That's great. Do you feel the education system is heading in the right direction as far as curriculum and learning styles?
Curriculum is always evolving, and kids always learn different ways. So I think that the educational system continues to evolve because you're not teaching the same group of kids. How I learned in the 90s is very different from how kids are learning in 2023. So I think it's always important just to be mindful of that.
Right.
And so, of course, you think about testing, you think about different types of curriculum and what learners learn specific ways, but I do think education is trying to keep up in that aspect.
Do you think we should revert back to um, pounding in their heads, basically? No?
No. We're
No?
trying to encourage free thinking.
Right.
And that rote way that we learned, write all your times tables down like this. I will not do whatever. Memorization
Right.
that doesn't help in the long term. So I think that we have to foster creativity. We have to foster independence. We have to foster critical thinking and memorization or rote skills that have been used in the 90s. I don't think that's as effective now.
What do you remember as a student growing up that may have left an uneasy feeling or a bad memory of a teacher?
I don't think I have any bad memories of teachers. I've been really fortunate to have really awesome educators, but what did leave an uneasy feeling is that there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. So I remember, so I grew up in Jersey City, on the Hill, affectionately known as the Hill,
Right.
And there was a school down the street, and I remember not being able to go to that school down the street. I had to get on a bus to go to another town, and I never understood why I wasn't able to go to the school down the street. And so that always left me with a feeling of thinking that there was something wrong in
Right.
education, but I didn't really know what. And then just being in spaces and places where I was either the only girl, the only black girl,
Wow.
that really left me feeling like, how do I find my identity? How do I find my space? How do I find my place in the world? And then it wasn't until I got to college and I had to be challenged against more people who look like me for me to really think about how my identity or how my experiences when I was younger really shaped where I am today. So more so just, I think that we have a lack of black and brown educators working in education, and that lack of representation, while we're doing a lot to fix that. And in the school that I'm in now, we're really fortunate to be able to have a lot of people who look like me in our classrooms as counselors, as school leaders, really to show kids that you can get here.
Right.
I wasn't afforded that opportunity when I was younger, so that always makes me feel a little uneasy.
So what school did you attend in Jersey City? Like grammar schools, like coming up.
Oh, so I went to Beacon Christian Academy in Bayonne.
Okay.
So I actually never went to school in Jersey City.
So you wasn't a product of public school system in Jersey City?
No.
Okay.
And then I went to Catholic High School. I went to St. Dom's in Jersey City. And then I went to University of Richmond. All private schools.
So how were you able to go to Bayonne living in Jersey City, being that we got sent to school based on our district that we were in?
So it's similar to how I now work in a charter school. So schools are choice. If your family or parents decide that the public school choice is not one that they want to give for their children, then they have the choice to send them somewhere else. And so because I went to a private school, you kind of opt out of the school in the district that you live in to be placed in a school in a different town.
Right.
Tuition. Bus.
Right.
Yeah, and having a single mom, I now realize how much of a sacrifice she made to be able to put me on a bus to go to Bayonne for 9+ years of education and then in high school.
Sheesh. that's a lot. Let's get to the next question. Now being in a position of change, how do you go about making those changes so that history doesn't repeat itself?
There's a quote that I love that says, when you get so fortunate to be at a table or to have a door open for you, make sure you leave that door open for the person that's going to come in after you.
Wow.
So I always think about that when I make decisions, especially working in an elementary school with 300+ students. How am I making sure that the decisions that I'm making today, that they're going to afford them a better opportunity than I had when I was younger? Perfect example, I went to school in Bayonne, different town, had to get on a bus. I work in Plainfield. All of our students who are here live and reside in Plainfield, so there's a choice for a school that they can go to right in their city. And how amazing is that I can be able to just continue to find new opportunities, whether that's a concert, a dance, a field trip. We're actually working to send our kindergartners on college field trips, which is awesome, to show them like this is what you can do even when you're 5 and 6. So always just leaving the door open and making sure there's other opportunities for people after me is what I always hold on to when I'm making decisions, and to make change, because change is progress, and so I want to continue to make progress for people other than me.
That's great. I wish I had you as a principal when I was coming up. You probably would have made.
I'm the cool principal.
Yeah. But you came from something, and you saw the flaws and things that you wanted to change, and now you're in a position to making those changes.
Right.
I think that's real detrimental to the kids that you're helping now. And that's a great place to be in, a good position to be in, to make those changes. We need more of you in our community.
Thanks.
No problem. So, what's the next step in life?
The next step, I'm 31 and a principal. People have to wait years and years and years to get there. And so I think that my trajectory from being just a classroom teacher to an administrator has been so fast, or has been so quick, that I really want to live in this moment of being a school leader. Oftentimes people say after they become a principal, then they want to move to being a superintendent or something like that. But because I'm still young, and because I just became a principal, I think my next step is just how do I continue to make sure that there are more principals who look like me in different spaces, and how do I refine my craft. So I don't think I have a next step yet, but I want to live in this season of
in this moment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So being a superintendent is in your future, but not immediate future.
And maybe it's not.
Okay.
Maybe I'm gonna retire, a principal, but I do appreciate the day-to-day, being in the building. My phone would ring right now and somebody would ask me, checking to see if it was ringing. My phone would ring right now and I needed to go to recess, or I needed to help a teacher. I like doing that, and so I want to stay as close as I can to that aspect of administration, to the kids. Yeah, to the kids.
Right. So you said you came up fast. You elevated fast. So how many years did you spend in those lower grades before you actually made the transition into becoming a principal?
I'm gonna do that math now. I did 3 years as a teacher in Newark, and then I did 5 years as a teacher in Plainfield, so 8. And then 1 year as an administrator, as an assistant principal, year 9, and then this is year 10. So I knew that before I became a principal, I wanted to have experience teaching a large range of grades.
Right.
So I took kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade. When I first started teaching, I taught 6th grade, to give me that aspect of realizing all different kinds of learners, because I believe before you become a principal, you really need to be a good teacher.
Right.
And so how can I tell other teachers how to make sure they're making change in their classroom if I haven't had enough experience doing that myself? I'll never be a principal who shows somebody or asks somebody to do something that I can't do or haven't done myself.
Right.
And so I've spent about 8 years in the classroom before I transitioned into administration, whereas most times people spend 10, 15, 20 years before they're able to have that opportunity. So I know that I'm really fortunate and blessed in the sense to be able to make those quick strides in such a little bit of time.
Right. Is that common for you to elevate so quickly, into becoming a principal? Is that common?
I don't know how many people know 31-year-old principals, so
right.
Maybe not. I will say that it really just depends on where you are and kind of the leaders that you have. And so you asked me before, how do I continue to make change? I think I've been really fortunate to have principals, school leaders, CAOs who see my potential and who know that, the seat that I sit in isn't the seat that I'm going to sit in forever. And so they've really helped me to see things that I didn't see in myself,
Right.
to move quickly, but I wouldn't say it's common that it happens as quickly as it happened for me. So.
Let's go back to the learning styles. How has integrating technology in school, not just as an elective, but as the norm, how do you feel it affect the children's learning capability?
Technology is everywhere, so if we didn't teach them how to use a Chromebook, how to use a tablet, how to navigate, then we're doing them a disservice in terms of teaching them what is going to be um,
Expected of them.
expected of them. Thank you. When they get a little bit older, so I feel like there has to be a balance, because if you use too much of one than the other, then the kids end up being at some type of a deficit.
Right.
And so, how do you equip them to be 21st century learners? Because a big part of that is how much digital literacy they have. How can they use a computer? How can they navigate technology? But also knowing that when you get to be older, you need to be able to sign your own checks and put your
Right.
signature on a piece of paper. So kind of finding a balance. And so I always make sure that in my classrooms that teachers are using a healthy balance of technology versus traditional pencil paper learning. And that's going to look different from a kindergarten classroom to an eighth grade classroom, because developmentally they're in like different trajectories.
Right. And how has, things changed in the school system as far as learning cursive? How do you feel like that affects these kids growing up now? Because we learn cursive.
We did learn cursive, and cursive is not in schools anymore, which I think is interesting, because that's a skill that you definitely are going to need to have to be able to put your signature on different pieces of paper. And so that's where it really comes into, I'm thankful that I work, in a charter school where you're able to have a little bit more flexibility with curriculum. You're able to really decide, what students need to learn. And so when you're able to be in a seat like the one I'm in as a principal, to make those decisions around what's going to help this kindergartner when they get into ninth grade or when they get into college, the decisions that I know I'm making for them now are going to affect them later on. And so I have to really be intentional about doing that. And that's everybody's job as an educator, to think through not what standard do they need to know for the year, what's going to get them to pass the test,
Right.
what's going to make sure they know this at the end of the day, like how is this going to help them become more well-rounded citizens and better individuals. So that is what we really need to be focusing on in the educational system.
Right. I like that you're high on the community. You're thoughtful of the parents and their daily struggles, things that they may have to do with their children when they get home. Like you said, deciding if I gotta help them with this homework, or I gotta maybe do overtime in my job to put food on the table and stuff like that. I think that's very thoughtful that you're thinking about that as well. That's good. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. Parents or community members always have to be partners. I really believe that. Parents are entrusting that they send their most precious gifts to us each and every day. And
Right.
so while they're with me for 8 hours, they're with their parents for all of their lives. And so I can't make a decision that's going to affect them without having parental input.
Right.
And so I'm always going to be a principal who believes in having healthy parent communication, whether that be teacher to parent, whether that be administrator to parent, whether that be, parent to the full staff, and really just building community, because it does take a village to raise children. It takes a village to educate kids.
Absolutely.
And so I always want to make sure that I'm being respectful of the fact that you are trusting me with your child. And so I need to make sure that any decision that I make, you're a full partner in that. And so I'm always going to make sure that the door is open for them, that they know what's going on, and if they need clarity or a clarifying question or just don't understand something, that we can work together to find a solution for that.
That's great. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Ms. Jazmin Gooding, principal of the school. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people out there, fellow educators, teachers, up-and-coming principals?
Yeah, we have the most important job.
Right.
Kids will sometimes forget, specific things, but they're never going to forget how somebody made them feel.
Wow.
And so when you are working in education, just always be respectful. Remember that this is somebody else's child that they're entrusting you to teach, and so what you would do for your own, you want to make sure you're doing for the kids who sit in front of you. We need more people that look like me. We need more black and brown educators. We need more black and brown administrators because, our kids deserve it. So we should just continue to be great, so we can keep leaving the door open for people behind us.
Right. Well, you on the grind with Big Green 201. Give people your Instagram, your school's Instagram, so they can follow you.
My principal Instagram is at Principal Gooding, PRINCIPALGOODING, Principal Gooding. I'm the principal at Queen City Academy Charter School in Playfield, New Jersey at QCACS. We would love for you to learn more about us, check us out, see what we're all about.
Good.